Okay, well,
Thank you.
Mel, why don't you read this next email? Because I thought the question in here was awesome, and I thought it was a good little topic for all of us to talk about.
Well, good, because he says, "Hey, team, great podcast. Keep those tangents going." So you've really set us up for another tangent here, Bob. I'm a newish officer in a semi-hardcore guild and was wondering if you guys had to deal with raiders on drugs or alcohol during the raid and how that impacts the raid and other raiders. Have you guys ever had to kick people or have an intervention, etc.? I know, right? As it was causing issues with mechanics and causing wipes, etc. Thanks for the advice and keep up the good work. Maddie from Argol, Ret Paladin for life. Well, first of all, he says for the Horde, but we'll just skip that. First of all, you're Ret Paladin, so I mean, we can only take this with a grain of salt, right? Because I'm just kidding. Ret Paladins are fine. But I think that's funny. What? They're not. I mean, you need one, maybe. I don't know. But I think that's funny because there's definitely, I mean, alcohol specifically. Yes, we've had some issues with people. Nobody on this show with me. But what's funny is I remember there was one time where this is actually a week Bob didn't raid. We went out and my dad's on city council and we went to this city council party and it was this open bar and I was just drinking and, whatever. And then we came back and I had to raid, right? And I'm 2 sheets to the wind, like super, super drunk. And I'm sitting here and I wasn't in the first boss because we were a little late because they ran over. And I'm like sitting at my computer and I like fall asleep at my computer. And then Bob comes in and he's like, "Hey, they're calling you in. What are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, okay." And so I get in and it's just like from there it was pure muscle memory, right? And I like topped the healing charts that week. Like I didn't overthink things. It wasn't like, and it's hilarious to me. Like that doesn't always happen. This is not a, hey, go get drunk and you'll do better because you usually don't. But that night, somehow, I made it work, right? We've also had other nights where we used to have somebody who would fall asleep, not usually during raid, but when we were doing other things, when Bob was doing other things. But I don't think we've ever had an intervention, have we, Bob?
Not an intervention, but like, I don't know, like, we've definitely never had, to my knowledge, any dealings with hardcore drugs or anything of that nature. Like, and usually, to be honest, weed it makes people a little bit slower maybe, but like it doesn't really impair them all that much, unless they're leading the raid or something. But
I have had an experience with that, and I totally disagree. And I think it has basically no place if you're in a progression raid, and they say you're like progressing through Mythic or something. It like show up sober, like if you have a drink, probably not gonna like lose it, but like if I can hear it in your voice, then it's like, dude, like what are you doing? Like we're all wiping here. Like we're trying to learn play our best.
Yeah. We never drink during progression, right? Like we'd always drink when things were on farm, and it was like, well, I might as well have a drink.
Yeah. The guild I play on Alliance, United Exiles, Pywood Village, we've had drunk Cara runs sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Where we're supposed to drink and we're supposed to sing. Karaoke runs we've had.
See?
Oh my God.
It's the way to make it fun. If you're going to Cara, right?
But I've actually had an intervention with a guy once. He was both smoking weed and drinking, and he was making misogynistic jokes. So I told him that's not okay. You're muted for the rest of the raid and we'll have a chat afterwards.
Yeah, luckily we're in a guild that doesn't allow that, and I know it can happen.
Well, they don't either, obviously, right? But I think when they, like, there's one thing about getting drunk or being on drugs and not playing as well. There's another thing about having bad behavior when you're drunk or on drugs, and then another thing about like
there were 2 women in that raid. One of them didn't say anything. The other said, "I don't mind," but I mean. They shouldn't have to step up and say something. They shouldn't have to be that person who's a whiny bitch. So, as the officer of highest rank there, I was the one who had to say something.
So
well, I appreciate you.
I think the context matters. You know, like you're saying, like in the context of like a guild that openly drinks together, like that's totally fine. But you know, in a situation where you have people that are trying their hardest to you know get through some content, you know, or just trying to get through it as quickly as possible because they have a couple hours that night and they want to you know get to the last boss or whatever. Like it's really a you know it's irresponsible and it's you know I don't think it's a cool thing to do. Personally, you know, like people will claim all the time. So I'm an arena player, and you get tons of partners who'll be like, "Yeah, man, I'm just gonna like you know I'm gonna hit the bowl real quick, and like I'm gonna play so much better. Just watch." Like no, you're not. Like it just never works out like that.
In your head, you play better.
You're just gonna not notice you're playing worse.
It's gonna feel more fun while you're losing. That's what's gonna happen.
I do arena with Ale like often every week, and he always comes in and the first question he asks is, Bob, been drinking tonight? It's the first question he asks because he's just setting himself up. Or are we gonna play 10 games or are we gonna play more? You're drinking, we're only playing 10.
I'm just gonna say for the record, the misogynistic jokes was not in the guild I mentioned earlier.
Oh, good.
But I think like you don't play competitively with Ale, right? Like you guys play and you have fun and you're trying to get points, but you're not like trying to exceed and like
that's why he's asking, because it's like
right.
If you know I've been drinking a bunch, he's like he really is only down to play 10, you know, just to get the points. Like, but he's down to play often more, you know, if I'm acute, you know what I mean? And oftentimes we play arena late at night. So if I've been drinking that day, I'm probably not in a good state by the time we start doing arena, which is, you know, which is one thing. But I can talk kind of to this a little bit too. Or do you have something else to say?
Well, I was just going to say, but I can go after you if you want to talk about it, and then I can give my thoughts.
I'll go third.
All right. So speaking of me specifically, for instance, Molten Core. Okay, so for me, drinking actually within the first like 3 hours, drinking actually makes me better. It's kind of like that whole thing of playing pool, like where you're more
steadies your hand.
Yeah, like where you're just more relaxed. I mean, I've got tons of proof of it throughout playing Classic. Like I do a bunch of like completely sober nights, and I literally overthink everything, and just, you know, but at the same time,
a beer or two always works when you're playing darts.
Can I interject on that?
We'll just let me finish though.
You go for it.
So like Molten Core, I pretty much never walked in that place without drinking because it was a joke, right? Then we got to BWL. I didn't drink the first night, and we dropped Neff. Like, and then we got to AQ, and I was like, I better not drink until we have everything down. And so I didn't drink for the like 2 weeks it took us for progression on that. And then next, same, but it was a long time. So like it was, but like basically anytime I'm learning something new, I've just decided that like it's the best idea and best for my raid that I don't drink. And so and like now that I'm on keto, I don't drink at all during raids, unfortunately, but because I only drink on the weekends and we don't raid on the weekends. But I do agree that if you're doing progression, it's just kind of rude, and that's why I stopped doing it. And just, you know, I want to be able to learn, and you know, after about 4 or 5 drinks, like I'm not really going to learn much. It's going to be muscle memory at that point. So I guess like we haven't had to deal with it much, but like there's the other thing that Mel was talking about, and when drinking heavily in Molten Core, it made me more likely to call out assholes. And we had an asshole tank. This guy was the type of guy that wasted our world buffs, countless times.
Let's not get into guild drama.
He's long gone. Who cares? Wasted our world buffs countless times by doing stupid stuff like, I mean, like wearing no shield on a boss where he had no right to, and things of that nature. So the alcohol actually made it so I would actually tell him off, whereas if I wasn't drinking, I wouldn't have. And at times it was good, at times it was bad. And that's where I think you really get into the problem. But as far as
it's just your filters on, right? And then you don't have, like, that wasn't the time or place to call somebody out and blame something on somebody, right? Like,
I mean, sometimes it was, but like oftentimes it wasn't. But like, I think if you have somebody who's drinking so much that they can't do mechanics also, like, that's really drunk. Like, that's me at like 2 a.m., like when I'm trying to tell people, guys, you sure you still want to keep queuing? I mean, I can't even see straight, but yeah, that's where I'm at. Like, you have to look at your own situation. And for my advice to this guy, you need to talk about it outside of raid. You can't wait till it happens in raid and try to talk to a person, because I don't care who you are. If you are hammered, you are not going to take it well if you get kicked because you're drunk. Like, no one's going to take that well at all. So talk to him outside of raid. Just be like, dude, we need you to come crisp, man, and you're just not coming crisp. But that's my advice. Go ahead and talk about what you go ahead and counter it if you want to.
I mean, I was just going to comment on how I would approach this, right? Like, I manage a lot of people, and I think in my background and behavior, I feel like there's a couple things you have to look at here. One is, what is your desired effect, right? Like, what are you looking for? Do you want them to stop coming to raid drunk or on drugs? Or do you want them to be gone, right? Because you have to take two different paths on each one you go, right? And so if you want them to just stop coming to raid and on drugs or drunk, then I say your path is to then assess why they're doing it, and or not. But if you know why they're doing it, then maybe you can address that. I think they're probably just doing it because it's fun and it doesn't impact them as much as it impacts everybody else around them, right? That would be my assumption. And I think you have to assess what their personality type is and what they'll respond to better, right? So sometimes pulling somebody aside and saying, like, hey, dude, we really need you to be crisp, like Bob was saying, will be very effective and impactful. Sometimes it'll turn them very defensive, and then they won't want to play, and then maybe they'll leave, which is fine too.
But that's kind of what you need to do at that point if they're going to the point where they can't.
But what I'm getting to is that sometimes it'll result in an effect where they just hide that they're drinking or on drugs or something, and then they're just not playing well, but you don't have any proof because maybe they're not screaming in the mic anymore, or maybe they're not advertising that they're drinking anymore, right? And so really, I would address the problem that you have. And the problem is not drinking or drugs. The problem is their performance or their attitude or what they're saying. And so you have to address that. So I wouldn't even, in my opinion, I likely wouldn't even bring up the drugs or the alcohol. So I would bring up the behavior that you want to change.
So you're saying bring up the performance and let them come to the conclusion of, maybe I better not drink, or maybe I should start drinking halfway through raid or something like that.
Correct. But you have to be able to deal with the consequences if it gets to that, right? So like, just like if I had an employee that was showing up late to work and I said, hey, if you show up late to work again, I'm going to fire you. And they show up late to work again. If I don't fire them, they're going to show up late to work all the time. No problem, right? Because I didn't follow through with what I told them that I was going to do. Now, if they show up late to work and I fire them, I have to be able to cover what I'm firing, right? So I need to be prepared to plan for that, because the last thing you want to do is kick the guy who is not doing great, but not have somebody to cover him. So then you guys can't raid for 2 weeks because you're recruiting, right? So I would plan for it now, have the conversation, and then be prepared for what's going to happen if he leaves versus if he stays.
Yeah, that's why you only kick DPS.
Yeah, or Ret Palais. Oh, sorry. No. I'm just kidding.
The thing I wanted to interject on is you were mentioning how having a couple of drinks actually improves your performance a little bit. And just an interesting tidbit is if you about learning in general, like the process of learning. If you learn something in the context of a drinking environment, so say playing darts, for example, is you typically done in a bar. If you learn something while you're drinking, those neurons will fire better if they are saturated in some alcohol. I
actually tested this
that
in college.
Of course.
I tested this in college with weed, and I it was an actual test, like where I studied while under the effects, and then took the test under the effects, and yeah, it was an interesting thing. I didn't try it again, but like someone told me that, and I was like, but then I took the test, and I don't know if this is like a good thing because it took a month, but I took the test again a month later and did much worse sober. So
there have been actual studies performed with the exact same
usually music is something you can use. I mean, if you listen to a certain song when you're studying, and then if you're allowed to listen to music while you're taking the test, that works.
Well, that's way less fun.
I got Nat coming back with like, well, you don't have to do drugs or alcohol to get this effect. You could also use something more healthy, like
more
music.
wholesome. Yeah, definitely.
That sounds ridiculous. I actually have multiple stories of like drugs and alcohol becoming a problem in different environments. But so like one of them was I was getting really heavy into arena in BFA, like season 1 BFA. Warriors were really good. I was playing Turbo, which was a really good comp in the beginning. And our shaman just started like randomly playing a lot worse and being like more confrontational, and he didn't sound drunk or anything, so there was no indication that anything was off. It's like what's going on, like why are we arguing more, like why are we losing so much more, and eventually he revealed that he had been getting more and more addicted to opiates, and he was getting high before queuing up. And these are the people that we were about to sign a contract for a team, and at that point I'm like, am I really, like, I had a lot of sort of diverging things happening in my life right then. I'm like, am I really gonna commit to like playing 10 hours a day with these guys? I'm like, probably not.
Yeah,
that's rough.
And then that happened again in phase 1 TBC, where I had one of my officers who was this really cool guy, really reliable, very smart, just like super good, experienced. And, just like it was just like one raid that he came in and he was loopy. He was just, he was making the weirdest jokes, just like wouldn't stop talking, playing terribly. And we were just like, what the hell's going on? And he had like gotten injured and like started taking drugs, but apparently he had an addiction before then, so that just reignited the addiction.
Yeah.
He started taking too much. But yeah, it's like a real thing. But
for sure.
Yeah, overall, just I don't think those things really mix. Yeah.
Well, and then just like the mixing of drugs and alcohol can have some catastrophic effects, like opiates with alcohol with weed. I mean,
Listen,
all kinds of different things. But
discuss alcohol and opiates and that. We're here to help him with his problem with somebody coming drunk to work.
I think Mel hit it on the head. Like, I mean, depending on your relationship with these people, most likely it's just a guilty relationship, which is very similar to a work environment relationship. And yeah, I think Mel hit it on the head. I think that's the best plan, is just tell them the performance isn't there, and maybe they'll come to their own conclusion and not partake in their fun time stuff that they do.
Yeah. I mean, either that or you let them go for performance, right?
It's a super good point. Yeah.
This is far too much like work. I work partly with drug rehab.
Nah. Well, I don't. Wow. I work with adults. I mean, I have adults that work for me that I are not in drug rehab, and it's the same thing. So, I mean, people are people, right? Behavior is behavior. And like, I know a lot about behavior and I know how to manage behavior. So honestly, I just think you have to think about what you want and address the actual problem, not the perceived problem, right?
Yeah,
it makes sense. That's a good point. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, very good. And thank you so much, Aragol, for writing in. That was
Maddie from Aragol.
Oh, Maddie. Sorry, my bad. Yeah, thank you so much for writing in. That was a good conversation topic that I thought was pretty interesting, and we hadn't brought.
They
up
got their tangent.
Before. Yeah,
they got their tangent.
Thank you very much for checking out Warcraft Reloaded podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss any future content.